What are the benefits of franchising your business model? This is the Leaders of Transformation podcast. And on this show, we interview difference makers and world changers who are disrupting for good. I'm your host, Nicole Jansen, and our guest today is Brian Cook. Brian is a serial franchise entrepreneur with 28 years of experience. His most recent company is StretchMed, which is a one-on-one stretching franchise model, which he founded in 2019 at the end of the year, and currently has 20 locations in 5 states. It aims to eliminate chronic pain, increase mobility, rejuvenate, and help you move well. Today, we're going to talk about the different types of businesses that can be franchised, the benefits, what to watch out for, when is the right time to expand, and how to use franchising to develop the greatness in people. Brian, welcome to the Leaders Transformation. We're glad that you're here today.
Hey, Nicole, thanks for having me. Great to be here.
It is a pleasure. Well, let's dive right in and talk about this idea of franchising. Why franchising? Why did you choose that?
Yeah, great question. So I really love franchising because it's a way that as an entrepreneur you can focus on creating intellectual property and then use franchising to scale and protect that intellectual property. So I find it the best method to grow an idea.
Got it. So you mentioned when we were talking before that there are a lot of businesses that can be franchised that we may not have thought about. You mentioned about even Entrepreneurs on Fire and some different ones. So maybe talk a little bit about sort of the breadth of it so our listeners can kind of get where they might fit in that as well.
Yeah, pretty cool. So I think, for me, I see myself as a simplifier where I can look at things and just say, geez, there's got to be an easier way. And if you look at all the coaches that are out there, any kind of coaching consultant, even podcast platform can be franchised. And really for it to be franchisable, you need to have a trademark, you need to have an operations manual, you need to have proof of concept. As long as you have those 3 things, to me, I don't see why you couldn't franchise it.
When you think about some of these ideas, a lot of them are based on, like, for example, coaching or podcasting are based on the person, right? So how do you franchise that and maybe even separate that out? And maybe even for people that are listening, how do they set themselves up so that it can be, in the future franchised?
Yeah, that's a great question. So to me, there's just got to be framework, right? So if there's a frame, most of us, I think really everyone, for the most part, follows some type of framework that they've created over their 5, 10, 15, 20 years of doing whatever they do. So for me, I have a framework that I use. That's something I've developed over 28 years. And that framework is used to, create the widget, the franchise model. And then there's another framework used to then franchise that model. So as a as a coach or a consultant, there's just a framework you follow. And typically the work is to get it out of the entrepreneur's head, which is the hard part, because we all just develop systems in our head. Get it out of your head, build an operating system, start to teach that system. And then your proof of concept would be when you finally remove yourself from it. You actually teach someone else how to do it, and you're able to prove a viable economic model. And then you're essentially, my method's always been open 1, open 2, open 3, and then sell 1, 2, or 3 of those initial units as in existing locations, and then just go open up more. And then typically at that point it starts to take off.
Well, the beautiful part about franchising is that scalability that you talked about right in the beginning, is this ability to take an idea. And we're talking about on this show about being leaders of transformation. And one of the things I loved about what you said when we were talking previously is about this idea of being able to build people and build the greatness and develop the greatness in people. And, if you have this brilliant idea and you're only able to help a few people, you're limited, right? So with franchising, you can scale in theory unlimitedly. Interesting point is because I noticed there's a lot of talk about thought leaders, influencers, and it's really about them, right? It's about this person is so awesome and they're promoting themselves. But doesn't that actually set them up to have a harder time franchising because it's all about them, right? I mean, Tony Robbins, it's hard to sell, Tony Robbins, Anthony Robbins to somebody else because they're not Tony Robbins.
Yeah, I'm definitely not interested in that. I'm not interested in building Brian Cook as a brand because you're not skillable as an individual. So to me, it's StretchMed, other fitness models. Newer company I'm going to open soon is going to be called Franchise Your Gym, going to help entrepreneurs franchise their health and fitness concepts. And then lastly, Everest Franchise Development, which will help all entrepreneurs franchise their concepts. But I'm kind of doing it in steps. I've got a lot of experience in boutique fitness, 28 years of being in the fitness space. So I'm going to stay there for a bit, spin up a bunch of health and fitness concepts, turn them into franchises, develop some mastery there. And then, outside of my own companies do it for other people. And then I'll move on to Everest, helping coaches, consultants, podcasters start to just create a brand that's outside of them that can be leveraged and that people will more, I think, get behind better than just some, super, larger than life personality. Tony Robbins is just like, he's amazing. That guy is completely amazing. So, but yeah, hard to scale Tony Robbins. So to me, if it's not scalable, I'm not interested. If it relies on some freak talent that someone has, it's like, nope, don't include that. So part of franchising is, taking your personal effect out of it. So you got to drive all that out. You do that through systems and through operating, manuals and then yeah, you're good to go. And there's nothing better when you help someone else get into business. It's super fun, and then they're successful and you're just collecting a 6% royalty, right off the top, and you just do it 100 times and ultimately 1,000 times.
So you had a background in health, and that's why you focused on that. Now this Stretch Med, excuse me. How did you come up with that idea?
Well, I definitely wasn't the one who invented the idea. Once what had happened is a family friend had taken me out for coffee 2015 to ask me about the stretching industry. And I had, he knew I'd been in fitness for a long time. And I said to him, geez, I haven't heard of that. Wow, that sounds interesting. He said, yeah, it's happening out of California. I'm thinking about investing in one. And my advice to him is, as long as you pick a great territory, you should be fine. Like most health and fitness concepts, if the territory and demographics are solid, you should be good. So we went our separate ways. And then a couple of years later, started to see Stretch Lab, Stretch Zone, and a few of the other, mom and pops kind of pop up. And this family friend, interesting enough, when I started doing my R&D, I went into one of his units, not even knowing that he ended up opening up five locations and never told me, which was interesting. So, and then as I started taking off, I said to myself, geez, very similar to health and fitness. I used to, we have a stretching, all my one-on-one personal training studios had a stretching component. I used to stretch one of the partners of the Boston Red Sox. He stretched him for 30 minutes and trained him for 30 minutes, but I never did I think stretching would become its own thing. So definitely wasn't the first one in the game, but just a lot of experience in creating models. So once I decided we were gonna get into the stretching business, I just put my fact finder brain on and flew around the country, went to all the competitors, just looked at their process, looked at their system, was surprised that all of them lacked like a methodical stretching sequence. So they left it up to the therapist, and I thought, interesting. They would teach stretches, but then they left the sequencing up to the therapist. So what they did to you in 50 minutes was completely up to the therapist, as long as they used the approved stretches. We took it a step further and just created a very structured sequence from head to toe, with 20 different PNF stretches inside our 50-minute stretch that are customizable. And the PNF is the proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation. That's the, get you to end range, then have you push against me, fire the muscle, and then relax, then we can get deeper into the stretch. So we customized 20 of those, but ultimately it's still part of a sequence. What that sequence has done is it's delivering twice the amount of stretching in the same minute of time as our competitors that are kind of clunking around. So we're just getting more work done. Just like if you were to go to a personal trainer and one trainer did twice the movements on you than the other, you leave the gym and say, wow, that was a much better workout. So, so came back to Boston and just, built the first model. And I'm like, all right, here we go. Timing's never right. Timing never is right. So, get the first model open, and I knew we had something because just during the construction, we set up a pop-up tent, and I'm like, all right, have my team, and see this guy walking down the sidewalk going to Starbucks, and one of my guys is like, hey, you want to try a free stretch? And he says, sure, and gets on a table and he gets up, and $380 EFT membership later, the guy just signed up, and we went on to sign up 100 people in our 6-week pre-sale. And then, even to back up, when it came to the stretch, I think I got the stretch initially underway, but then it was just a team. We had a team of athletic trainers that we hired. My muscular therapist was involved in developing the protocols, kinesiology, exercise physiology. So just really, we spent 9 months just on the stretch. So I think that's our thing. We spent a lot of time on the product, and then it was the marketing and the aesthetics of the studio. And I think our other big innovation is we've made them smaller. So we're opening 1, 2, 3, and 4 table one-on-one boutique stretching studios in high traffic, amazing locations. Our competitors are opening much larger, kind of box, like this is it, this is the model, take it or leave it. And I'm like, that's not how I think. I'm like, let's find the great location, and then let's build the model. And the customers actually love the smaller studios because it's more personal, more private. So it's been really smart. And our number one location is just under 900 square feet. It's at like a 4-way intersection with 3 storefronts. It's an amazing location, and our competitors would have had to pass on that location because it doesn't fit. It's not big enough. So that's kind of how we're kind of going to disrupt that industry, is just make them smaller and more efficient and open more of them. So it's more convenient for the customer than one big facility that we're going to try to draw a 15-minute, 20-minute drive from.
So that's a really interesting point, because when you think about any business, there has to be talk about scalability, there has to be a certain amount of capacity to be able to make that business profitable. How do they do that with, let's say, like 1 bed or 2? I mean, that's very small. I mean, obviously their overhead's a lot less. So, but in terms of, is it run by an operator? Is there a manager? What's that model?
Yeah, great question. So we've already piloted the one table studios. We actually have one we opened in Puerto Rico, and it's in its 2nd month open. And when you do the math, we open it from 6 in the morning until 8 at night. So 14 hours, 7 days a week. We're charging $75 a stretch for a 50-minute stretch. We book them every hour, and we're paying a therapist roughly, in Puerto Rico, it's like $20 to $25 an hour. In the States, it's probably $25 to $35. So there's your margin. I mean, you do the math. Item 19 in our first satellite. So the first one tip we launched in Puerto Rico, it had we had 12,000 in profit the first month open. Now Puerto Rico, I think, is just an outlier because it's an emerging market, and not many businesses are marketing down here, digital marketing. So it kind of really took off. But in the States, it's going incredibly well. So it's really, when you look at, you can either run your business from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. or 9 to 7, Monday through Friday, weekends 8 to 2. But if you really think about it, customers would like to come before or after work. So all we're doing is really spreading out the time. And then The last time I checked, it's a great problem to be completely full and you don't have
Yeah.
another slot, because then what's going to happen, you can increase your rates and it's going to have an immediate effect on profit bottom line. And I'm a real, stickler to the bottom line, because gross sales means nothing. It's just like, what does it cost to open? How much time does it suck out of my life? And what's my profit? And as long as we hit on those three things, we're solid. And another big innovation that we just pulled the trigger on like a couple of weeks ago is we hired a consultant that's now going to train managers of StretchMeds, exclusively trained managers. And he came from a competitor. He was one of their top managers reached out to me on LinkedIn, moved other side of the country and just looking for another opportunity. So, again, a pain point for scaling franchises is people, right? It's developing people. So his job is exclusively develop managers of StretchMeds. So now the managers can go to him if they have a problem, and then he can come to us. So we can try to save our owners from kind of getting in the weeds of running a studio. So
Now,
that's going to be exciting.
so that model is more so based on the fact that you have managers in the locations, or is it more owner operated to a certain extent where the owner is actually the manager?
Yeah, pretty much our model is all manager run. So we want our owners to be analysts,
Okay.
study data, study numbers, and just organize talent. So this would suffice, where now we have this individual, we're charging, it's like $275 a month for him to provide this, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annually rhythms with your managers and your one-on-one calls, one-on-one Zoom calls with the owners and the managers, and then putting them in a group dynamic. And because he's already been so successful in their position, he's just 3 years ahead of them. So he can provide some really good mentorship and leadership where an owner can't. We can't really communicate, as with employees of franchises. So now we can really focus on owners. He can focus on managers, and then that combination is going to be amazing. So we're really excited about that.
Well, having had a franchise, and my dad owned franchises, and then, as I said, working with franchisors, even helping with one of the franchises that I owned, kind of helping to try to fix it on the back end, which was an interesting experience. But I'm hearing something with you that is kind of like an obvious, but I think it's important to bring it up for those that are interested in franchising and or own franchises, and that is investing in your franchisees and making sure that they're successful. Because I think you and I were talking about this, I mean, before, is that, I mean, I've had franchisors that I've talked to that say that their primary source of revenue is actually selling more franchises. And it's like, well, that therein lies your problem. Because we're like, well, we don't make much money on the royalties. And that's a problem. That's a problem for scalability. That's a problem for going out and build, and selling more franchises. Otherwise, you're just churning, and you talk about that's like the reverse effect of helping to build people, because people get all excited. Maybe they invest. I mean, maybe yours are not as expensive, but some of these franchises are pretty costly. People put their life savings into these ventures, and then only to find out that that it's not as profitable as they thought it would be. And then their morale goes down, confidence goes down, they sell it, and it kind of goes downhill from there. So it doesn't work to scale. So talk about some of the things, like you've already mentioned it, but talk about that from that importance of building that. And even when you mentioned about 1, 2, 3 locations, selling it, testing it out, because there's a lot of people who think franchising is a great opportunity. I can sell a ton of these things. And then they get to like I think what you said to me was, what, 50% of, franchises don't ever get past 20 units. And therein lies like what we're talking about here, is that problem. So talk a little bit about that so that people can learn how to move beyond that, and or even those people that are listening to go and buy a franchise, what do they need to be listening for in terms of determining whether or not it's a good franchise to buy?
Yeah, great question. So I heard from a consultant that I talked to who's been in the industry for like, 30 years or so. And it was just amazing for me to learn that, 90% of there's about 4,000 or so franchisors, and 90% don't make it to 100 units, and 50% don't make it past 20. And I was like, whoa, that's just mind blowing. And it makes complete sense because the entrepreneur is good at the thing, right? The widget. But then when it comes time to scale that, it's really hard. It's really, really hard. And you can't be good cop all the time. And that's kind of the hard part. So, so that's so in terms of, your comment about the guy that needs self franchises to make a living, and that's a big problem, right? So because, for me, at different phases, we'll stop selling franchises because of how many are in the queue. Like, we haven't actually made it a priority for 3 or 4 months because we went from 7 locations to 25 in 2022. So we had a huge jump. My team was massively, stressed, and that's when things, you could have trouble. And we have, in my framework, as I mentioned to you, I have an 11 module framework, and one of them is this new client experience. And what that means is when someone hands us money, we need to make sure that whatever they thought they were getting, it's actually better. Not what they think, it's going to be better than they thought. And if you do that, you win, right? And that's exceeding customers. It's just exceeding expectations that your customers have. So this management training program I told you about, this is a requirement. This isn't like, oh, I'm good, I can develop my manager. It's like, not under StretchMed, you can't. So this will just be a requirement to buy a franchise, because in 20 years, like, this is the weakness. This is a glaring weakness, which is leading and developing the person that's going to run your widget, is you're not going to want to, because it's a lot of work to manage $25 an hour employees all weekend long. So develop the guy or gal that's going to do this, create huge vision for them, right? Get them excited that they have way more beyond that one location, and then let them lead and develop. And then, my favorite expression is, wealth creation is the direct correlation of your ability to develop people. So that's what we focus on. So it's our thing is just, solving problems. And a new thing that I got really clear about is, I'm sending out I'm carving my schedule Tuesdays and Thursdays all day, only to talk to owners. So a monthly owner call with me, and I did the math. I'm good until about 100 locations, and I'll probably either add a day or go to quarterly and have someone else on my team. But for now, when you're small, I just want to make sure I have that one-on-one call, no one else on the call, just me and the owner, so I can hear how's my team performing. How can we help you? What bottlenecks, what problems, what hassles are you seeing? And then also I can have that straight talk, like, oh, hey, I appreciate you want to try something different, or you have a different way, or you want to do this, but here at StretchMed in the franchise model, we have to do it this way. And because a lot of times owners will buy a franchise and they just want to do their own thing, and they want to test and do all kinds of, and it's like, innovation can destroy a company. So it's like, hey, let's first do it works, and then we can talk about massaging the system once you're executing everything that we're going to put in front of you. So it's just agreeing to disagree, and then compliance. And one thing we're going to do is, rather than let someone fail and they're not following the system, and just kind of really plug in with them and say, hey, franchisee, and then there's a brand called StretchMed. Three parties in this relationship. Let's really take care of this brand, because if we don't take care of it, we're both going to lose money. So, I'm excited about that call. And then this new consultant we brought in, he's also going to have a monthly call with every owner and every manager. Same thing, one-on-one Zoom call. So the consultant can talk about how their manager's performing, close rate, retention rate, lifetime value, look at all the key performance indicators in the studio. And again, we just become analysts. Because for me, I've had fitness studios in California when I lived in Boston, and had the benefit of some of them, making $3,000 to $5,000, $4,000 to $6,000 in profit, working 1 hour a month on that business because of developing people. So that's kind of the cool thing, is just, we're building this so that someone might open one close to home, really, that's their proof of concept, right? I have my own, but they need their proof of concept. Open one, master those skills, and then it's like you can open them anywhere. And we're real students of demographics, so we're finding ridiculously good locations. We're getting landlords to do turnkey build outs. So that just takes the cost of opening the model. And then in terms of success, our item 19. So in franchising, as you know, there's a item 19 in the franchise disclosure doc that allows franchisors to make earnings claims. So that's really the report card. So we work really hard at that. And our current item 19, we have, it's like 7,700 a month in profit. What the stores are doing after paying all expenses, managers, that's like the average. And some are doing it in their second month, some did it in their fifth month. So bring on a new marketing vendor. So we're constantly looking at the best vendors that are available to our franchisees, and then we'll just negotiate really good deals. So to me, franchising is just organizing vendors and talented employees, team members, that we can give them the tools. And for us, it's hiring personal trainers, certified personal trainers, athletic trainers, any kind of fitness professional, teaching them 36 stretches, putting them in this great upscale boutique studio, lighting up the marketing, and then this cool stretch that they give clients, and then the rest is history. And I actually have a lady who walked into a location we have in Tampa. Her daughter is like a almost professional gymnast, I guess, and loved the stretch, and now she's buying 3 units in just north of Tampa down in Florida. So that's just kind of how where people come in, they see the product, and yeah, franchising it's just an incredible model. A lot of work, and then you get to deal with you get to deal with a lot, but to me it's a fantastic vehicle, chasing 7 figures. I think it's a really good 7-figure model that you can then have a really awesome exit. And as you've seen, tons of private equity is getting involved, not just in franchisors, they're actually buying up franchisees. And I know of a group that own 111 Orange Theories. So I'm sure my owners at some point will get a knock on the door, and it's private equity looking to acquire StretchMed locations, which will be super exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, on the flip side of this, I know there's also some challenges in terms of having to deal with this. There's a lot of work, like you mentioned. I know that you also have learned some stuff. You were talking about to me recently some stuff that you went through. So, what are some of the biggest challenges that you've seen, that you've experienced in franchising, and how have you been able to resolve that?
Yeah, I think for me, it's it's perfecting the first model, and then the second and the third, and only expanding locally, like literally, because once you go across state lines and you start expanding nationally, it's like 10 times harder, because you're dealing with like the mindset in other states where everyone thinks it's differently, and it really isn't, but they think it is. So you have to battle that mindset, and you can't just like meet with them in person. It's over Zoom, it's a phone call. So to me, crush proof of concept, get 2-3 locations open, get to then 10 or 15 in your market. If you're a brick and mortar, if you're a consultant, same thing, just grow slower and really make sure you have that super strong validation. And we've dealt with a lot more than I think anyone will really deal with, because we opened up November 2019, and then just had great success, sold 3-4 franchises, and then COVID hit. So it was just this, and then we have a fitness brand, and we had just acquired 5 fitness locations on the fitness side, and lost about $1 million just like that, like within a 12-month period. So we kind of got really banged up over COVID. So that kind of threw the playbook out the window. But in terms of just a normal world, just have enough capital. But the good thing is just run the widget, and then keep one of them if that's going to pay your bills. Open up a second one, and then just sell that one. Open up a third one, sell that one, and just grow really slow. And just make sure you stay in touch with the owners. And my mistake over the years is just losing touch with my owners. And that's because then they forget how much you care about them. They think you're just some kind of greedy franchisor making all this money, when you actually really care about people. So, for me to sleep at night, I can only sell a franchise if I'm 100% certain it's going to work. If I'm not 100% certain, we don't sell franchises, because you're taking someone's life savings. You could, cause a divorce. You could really do some damage to someone. So this guy that just wants to sell franchise and make money, it's like, karma will take care of him. So it's kind of like we're pretty serious, even to the point where we will protect some franchise owners from themselves. Like they're kind of going rogue and like, all right, well, we got to get you back in line, because if you don't, you're going to blow up. And if it's done right, so if the right territory is picked, the right location inside that territory is picked, actually, we back up. The right owner starts with the right owner, the right territory, the right location in that territory. Then we negotiate the right lease, hire the right manager, hire the right assistant manager. If all that's done and then follow the system, really hard to screw up. So to me, the worst case scenario is it's more work than you thought, and let's just get your studio sold. And can you live with what it costs you to open and what you can sell it for? And usually it's really not a life-altering difference from those two numbers. So that's kind of how I approach it with potential owners, have that conversation. But if you like people and you want to, like, I'm talking to a guy that's a basketball coach out in Arizona, phenomenal guy, and I'm like, wow, he's sitting here, just his whole passion is getting the most out of his team. And I'm like, wow, that's going to translate to coaching his StretchMed team and mentoring them and leading them and developing them. I'm like, wow, he's going to be fantastic. So if you like, people, and I have a motto: care first, crush second. So once someone knows how much I care about them, then I can be brutally honest in their development and why they haven't got to the next level. So that's how we do it.
So you mentioned like owner being the first and foremost one, and another experience I had was multiple times is with franchisors that were just basically selling franchises to anybody who had the money, and or people that were somewhat entrepreneurial minded, and yet that doesn't necessarily guarantee that they're a good franchisee. You mentioned a few things, right? Their ability to care about people, their ability to and obviously being in the industry, understanding the industry helps too. But talk about what's the criteria for a good franchisee, and and maybe what's not, like, if you're like this, don't get into franchising, or if you're going to get into franchising, approach it differently. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
the good, the bad, and the
Yeah, that's a good question. So some of my worst franchise owners in the 22 years I've been franchising were very successful in other areas. So what ends up happening, the ego of being really good at something and then realizing that doesn't translate into this world, they can't get past that. So then it just becomes, they just want to change everything. They want to tell you how you can be better. And I told this individual, I don't aspire to be anyone but me, right? I'm not, I didn't set out to be who you want me to be. I am who I am, and I'm authentic, and I don't change. So really it's like, and I imagine myself getting into some other line of work, and boy, would I be a student. Ego checked at the door, beginner's mindset, blank sheet of paper. What can I learn? So to me, core value, we're continually learning. It's like, you got to just come in and learn what this entrepreneur has done for 28 years, 20 years, 15 years, 10 years, 5 years, and just save your, what you've done until it's applicable at some point. So, to me, if you look at franchising as a way to take something that's proven, of course, you'll have the ability to make it better. And the great thing about franchising is we're just recruiting a bunch of talented owners, amazing people, and then we're collectively making StretchMed better. So really, one person can't be better than 50, 100, 300, right? So franchisor, it's really this feedback loop of talent and how people are I call it massaging a language. So there's a language which is running a StretchMed model, and every now and then there's a pronunciation of that, and then we have an innovation. So the 11th module is innovation. So that's essentially looking at best practices across the system and saying, oh wow, look at this. This person has they've done a minor tweak. They're doing really well. Let's look if it's scalable. That way we're not, you've heard some stories like I think it was like the fillet of fish at McDonald's was a franchisee created that. And then, obviously violated the franchise agreement, blah, blah, blah. So we, for the most part, franchisors are like, look, it's like the 90% approach is 10% of like, as long as you're executing well, and it's like if you're, a top 10 owner, a top 10% owner, and if you're a bottom 10% franchise owner and you have ideas for the franchisor, it's like fingers in the air. So it's like, I'm not interested until you first can implement what we've proven to work.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say if you're an owner that wants to use franchising as a pathway to wealth creation, whether it's building, just creating passive income, developing a manager, it's awesome. It's awesome. But if you want to come in and just start to change everything that exists, even if it could be better, it's just the point. That's not the point. So the franchisor isn't interested in you changing its model, dramatically. Of course, they're open to nuances and small changes that can be made, and that's exciting. And just being a people person and really wanting to develop a singular manager that's going to develop everything else. That's what I love, is that we're not asking our owners to like manage 15 or 20 employees. Just manage one, let that person manage everyone else, and then just stay in touch with us. I'll talk to them once a month, and then get them to 1, 5, 10, 50 units, whatever their vision is.
Yeah, I think about the entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur, and entrepreneurs like to create things, especially quick starts. You mentioned about Fact Finder, so that's the Colby, right? Where I'm a high quick start, so I like a 9. So I like to create things, innovate, and ideate about things, and that can be great. And when I bought a franchise, the reason why I bought a franchise was back in the day was because I was buying a system. And so I was clear that I'm like, well, you're telling me that you have a system that is better than what I have, then I'm going to set aside what I have and use your system. And I think there's a lot of times where entrepreneurs, like what you're talking about, they buy this business because they see it's lucrative, and then they want to go in there and they want to get in. It's like messing with the gears and messing with all the stuff. And it's like, that's not why you buy a franchise. You buy a franchise for the system itself and recognizing that that's it. Now, when you talked about owners can look at it as wealth creation, buying multiple units, and not necessarily changing the model, but actually leveraging and using the model to scale to do other things that they want to do. And once they have that success, what I'm hearing you say is once they have success and they notice and they say, hey, you know what, we could probably do this and this would be better. And then they can take it to that next level. But the first thing is you got to master the system before you can actually know how the system needs to be improved, if it needs to be improved. So that's really, really important, I think, for people to recognize. Well, I love what you're doing. I love it's good business. It's not like, quick hits, you're, quick getting rich quick kind of idea, but it's almost like what I'm hearing is slow is fast. You build it slow, you build it solid, you build it steady. And that is the transformational opportunity, because you're actually able, by doing that, able to grow really fast and build something that is lasting. So I love that. So you mentioned about what's next for you and your vision. So you've got StretchMed. You mentioned about also some other things that you've got planned. Talk about that.
So my next company. So what's interesting that I had to get really clear with. So when I started StretchMed, I really realized that I need to be create companies, and I'll never not do that again. And that was like my worst thing I did is my fitness model. I just stayed in that, 12 years and it just didn't create anything other than that. I had a couple one-on-one concepts before that, then did group fitness, and then I just kind of put my head down, grinded. We went through a disruption phase. We're about to grow that model again, which is kind of exciting. COVID did a number on fitness, but we've got 20 really strong units on the group fitness side, and it's called Get in Shape for Women. The customer's a 40 plus female that wants to lose between 20 and 30 pounds. So it's very specific, and it's a 4-component model: weight training, cardio, nutrition, accountability. It's awesome. So I love that, just because my passion is health and fitness. So we're gonna start growing that again now that COVID's kind of behind us. I had a call last week with our number one owner, and he's absolutely crushing it. And he's not even in a great territory, and he's crushing it because he's so good. So we've got that model, which is exciting. StretchMed's taking off, and then the next brand I have is called Franchise Your Gym, and it's essentially, as mentioned, going to help health and fitness entrepreneurs take their widget, their passion, and franchise it. And the cool thing about the math, if they're making $100,000 a year running their fitness concept, and they franchise, and we get them to even just 10 units based on their ability. 10 units at a $1,500 a month franchise fee, that's another $15,000 a month. And they could do that easily with a few people on the team, and super easy, because that's kind of how I've done everything, is one, and then get it to the 3, 4, 5, 10. You're making $300,000 a year, and it's like, you're pretty good. Most people can pay their bills, making $300,000 a year, and it still allows reinvestment capital. So we'll spin that up. And what I'm excited is my customers will now become franchisors. So I kind of went from, personal training clients, group fitness clients, to that. Then franchisees have been my customers. Franchise owners have been my customers for 22 years. Now I'm gonna up level, and then develop franchisors who would then develop franchisees, and they'll do we'll do Franchise Your Gym, maybe 50 units, and take a small equity stake, maybe 10%, take them from proof of concept and just scale them. And then lastly, Everest Franchise Development will be all things franchising. At restaurants, I don't know anything about restaurants, but I'll hire the restaurant experts. So I'm just going to hire all the industry experts in the spaces that I don't have expertise in, and then create this ecosystem of franchisors, everything from legal, marketing, HR, and then just keep everyone connected under one umbrella. So we just get best practices, and we can really disrupt the way franchising has been done. And all the the garbage franchisors that are just taking money from people, they just wash away, because we'll create a new standard of franchising where everyone wins if they want to follow the system. And those that don't, some people just, I've seen it. I remember this one guy, I won't mention his name. He literally bought the franchise and just absolutely was just not interested in following the system. It was just shocking to me that you can put that kind of money into something. So we had to, we agreed, and he exited, and we were good. But it was just like, wow, some people are just, it's very rare though. You get some people off the rails, but I'll help those franchisors. So I'll support them. So I'm excited to support new franchisors. I've been through multiple, I went through 5 years of litigation in different matters that we ultimately prevailed. So just, it's wild. It's a wild ride, but it's super cool, and you meet some amazing people. And I'm lucky to have an awesome team, and really the franchise owners. Without them, there's no franchisor without your franchise owners. So you got to keep that in mind. And that's why I talk to them often, and we have some butt heads here and there, but then ultimately it's like, hey, we care about each other. This is business. I don't take it personal. Let's just, no past. Tomorrow's a new day. Let's do this. Let's make this business as good as we can make it.
Yeah, there's that common mission. You're, reminding people of what the common mission is, even if there's some disagreements about, certain things. So that's really good. Well, Brian, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your insight. I know for you, this is like old hat. You just do it, and you've been doing it for years, but it's really important. And it's really important what you're doing, and it's important what you've shared here today. I think that's going to be enlightening for many people who are listening who might be thinking about franchising, thinking about buying a franchise, maybe wondering if they had a franchise, why it didn't go well. There's I think there's a lot of really incredible value that you've shared here today. So thank you for that. Where do people go? Where would you like them to go if they wanted to learn more about what we talked about here today?
Yeah, I'm not much of a social media person. I think I was the last one to join Facebook, but and I really use it for marketing. So I think LinkedIn is probably the platform I've been paying probably, if any, attention. My LinkedIn, I think it's Brian R. Cook 1 is my LinkedIn profile. So that's an area happy to help anyone that's just have ideas, because I love it. That's like my problems. I talked with one guy one time for like 4 hours. He was a barber. He wanted to franchise his barbershop. And I just absolutely loved talking him through what that looks like, how he would go about doing that. So just love it. So that'd be a method. StretchMedStudios.com is our website at StretchMed. And then we just cleaning up people are interested in franchise, cleaning up the form a little bit, but then typically I jump on one-on-one Zoom calls with those interested in opening up a StretchMed. So yeah, LinkedIn, StretchMedStudios.com. If I can help your listeners in any way, just gain some insight. My pleasure.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Brian. I appreciate you and what you're doing. Thank you to our listeners for tuning in, our viewers. I hope you enjoyed this. There's a lot of really great nuggets in this. This may be one of those ones that you go back and re-listen and sort of unpack all the nuggets that were actually shared here. And I always say that leaders of transformation take action. So take action on something that you learned here today. Listening to podcasts is awesome. You can learn some great things, but it's only when you take action that transformation really happens. It's only when you take action that you actually start to see the impact of all of that time invested in learning come to fruition. So I encourage you to take action on something today. Check out what Brian is doing at StretchMedStudios.com. Find him on LinkedIn, follow him, follow his posts and what he's up to. And if you're interested in franchising something, hey, you know what? Reach out and maybe he can help you to do that. So we encourage you to do that. We'd love to hear your stories. You can find us on social. And yes, we are on Facebook, and generally I just use it for marketing as well. So we are on Facebook, of course, LinkedIn, all those wonderful places. And of course, our website, leadersoftransformation.com. You can find us through that. So we appreciate you. Thanks again for being here. And we look forward to seeing you next week on another episode of the Leaders of Transformation.